Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Sorry for the late post, but it'll be a longer episode. I got mired in some research, not least of which was getting carried away studying the results of a poll that we will be talking about. Apologies if I ramble a bit, but it is an important topic. Mostly national stuff today, but some good UBI news as well. Let's get to it. Quick shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park, Shay Meehan, and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If any of you out there want to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/YangDaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. Now on to the news. Well, it's happening. The Supreme Court have announced that they will take the abortion case of a Mississippi law banning abortions 15 weeks into pregnancy with no exceptions for rape or incest. The Roe v. Wade ruling directly prohibits abortion bans earlier than 24 weeks. The GOP have been putting up laws like this one which directly violate Roe, specifically to try and prod the court to take one up and strike Roe down. With the 6-3 conservative supermajority, those justices, by taking this case on, are saying that they think the time is right to make their move, and they think they have the votes to overturn it. They also explicitly said that they would be examining whether states should be allowed to ban abortion prior to fetal viability, Roe's key protection. If they succeed, there would be nothing to stop any state with sufficient votes from fully banning abortion. 35 House Republicans voted with all Democrats to pass a bill for a bipartisan investigation into the Capitol insurrection through the House yesterday. Just for the record, the 175 Republicans who voted no just deemed an invasion of the Capitol in order to halt the democratic process by threatening our elected representatives to be less important than Benghazi, which they pushed through 30 hearings on. McConnell has backtracked on earlier support for the bipartisan commission and now opposes it. Shocking. This means it is likely to die in the Senate, as all things that don't fit into the reconciliation workaround do in a filibuster Senate. Speaking of insurrection, the Attorney General has now joined the Manhattan DA in the case against Trump and announced that the civil case will now include criminal charges, meaning that Trump may face prison time if found guilty. A recent poll by Rural Objective PAC of 2,100 voters in battleground states has some disturbing results. The poll seems not to have asked for party affiliation, but did target rural areas, so the majority are likely Republican. The good news is that 68% of participants indicated support for stimulus checks throughout the pandemic, 16 points higher than expanded unemployment insurance. In fact, of the dozen or so policies measured, only expanding internet access and lead-free water were more popular than unconditional cash aid. Where it gets disappointing is in the partisan questions. While 50% associated stimulus checks with the Democratic Party, 32% associated it with the GOP. This is sort of good and bad. It's sort of good in the sense that it lends hope to unconditional cash possibly being a bipartisan policy, which would be ideal. It's bad in the sense that it shows voter ignorance. The GOP flat out voted against increasing the last stimulus check from $600 to $2,000 in a bill which did nothing but that. It was an unequivocal rejection of stimulus checks. Yet many voters apparently do not know that. It's not surprising, but it is a major problem. When voters don't know what the parties actually stand for, they don't hold the parties accountable for those stances, and the democratic system breaks down. Ignorance is toxic, and most Americans lack the time or inclination to be sufficiently informed to make democracy work the way it should. Or worse, they fall victim to misinformation. It's why it's so important that we give citizens more time, motivation, and ability to be informed. On that note, incredibly, more people associated the GOP than Democrats with the virtues of honesty and trust. It seems impossible considering the GOP has wholeheartedly denounced truth in science, in observable facts, in embracing conspiracy theories. Trump told more objective lies in his 4 years than any other modern president by orders of magnitude. If you include misleading statements, it's up to 31,000 by the Washington Post's count. Most of the GOP's leaders continue to push election fraud lies, deny climate change, deny medical science around the pandemic, blatantly lie about the content of bills, and so on. It's all been flatly debunked a million times over, yet the party continues to adhere to it and so much more. At this point, it would be difficult for them to be less honest, quite frankly. It's not to say that the Democratic Party is any paragon of virtue, of course. We're all familiar with the lies that get told about Yang and UBI on the far left, for instance, but there is no contest between the parties as far as adherence to empirical fact at this point. Perhaps my memory fails me, but I cannot think of a single empirical big lie being pushed by the Democratic Party at large right now. While there are so many in the GOP, I would need extra hands to count them all. Which makes it all the more disturbing that another question found 50% of respondents trust the words of Trump. Yes, the man who empirically lies at rates rarely seen outside of mental disorder. When brazen liars are trusted as much or more than the rest, that's a downward spiral with the potential to destroy civilizations. It gets crazier, too. Far more survey respondents associated the Democrats over the Republicans with pandering to racists. What? Protecting democracy also favored Republicans, literally the party that tried to overturn a legitimate election by force and has consistently opposed the right to vote throughout history. That is protecting democracy? The last thing I want to spend my time talking about is one party versus the other, but this is the partisan tribalism that is eroding the critical thinking of our populace, fueled by ignorance, misinformation, and a giant system of malincentives. I don't know how the country survives if we don't find a way to deal with the resulting mass delusion. It's fine to have differences of opinion, but we need to turn the ship back to empirical truth through cultural, educational, economic, and democratic reforms that we've talked about at great length by now, and quickly. In happier news, Los Angeles County's board has voted 4-1 to approve the basic income trial. They've set a 6-month period to develop a specific plan and expect it to be at least $1,000 a month for 1,000 residents and last for 3 years. Congrats, LA. And finally, props to Andrew, who decided the best business to hang his new poster at is the infamous "Is it a bodega?" He posted a short clip of it, and it's pretty funny. He and the owner have clearly had some laughs about the ridiculous incident. Ah, the scandal that started it all. It's just never the same as the first time, you know? And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the LA Basic Income. Flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the ResistBot or Income Movement Easy Contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.